Bochiknot Macrame. My name is Nicole. In this channel you will find everything related to macrame, from tips and tricks videos to DIY tutorials. You should be able to find a lot of valuable macrame content right here. If you guys do find this content valuable, please click that subscribe button. In this week's tutorial, we'll be going over how to dye macrame cord. In one of my earlier videos about how to choose cord, I talk about color cord being more expensive because it goes through a separate dye process. And oftentimes you might not even find the exact color that you want. So one way to mitigate that is to dye cord yourself. There's many different ways to dye cord. Today I'll be showing you guys how to not only dye macrame cord, but also how to dip dye a finished macrame wall hanging. And we're going to give it a little bit of an ombre as well. We're going to be using Rip Dye, which is an all-purpose dye that you can find at your local craft store. There's many other ways and more natural ways to dye cord too, such as using avocados, tea bags, or even food coloring. If you guys are interested in knowing how to dye cord using these other methods, let me know in the comment section below. You guys do need some supplies and materials before you guys get started in dyeing cord, and so I have posted that list right after this intro, so make sure you familiarize with that before you get started. It's definitely fun mixing up different colors and variations to get to the right color that you want, and it's all about experimenting and having fun while doing it. Make sure you guys watch all the way through because I'll be showing you guys how to dye a dark gray color as well as a dusty pink, so you definitely want to stay tuned for that. With that, let's begin. Hi everyone, before we begin, hopefully you guys had a chance to gather all the supplies you needed to dye macrame cord. We're actually going to start working on the latest ebook I had released, and it's this triangle pattern wall hanging, and we're going to dip dye the ends as well as the tassels that I have on the piece. If you guys are interested in getting the pattern ebook on this triangle wall hanging pattern, check out the link in the video description below. It's available on my Patreon. We're going to dye the tassels a dark gray color, and then at the ends of the wall hanging, the fringe part, we're going to ombre from a light gray to a dark gray. So the first step in dyeing cord or dyeing a macrame piece, you want to make sure that you pre-soak the cord, the cotton fibers, in warm water. I usually let it soak for about 30 minutes just to make sure that it is thoroughly soaked through. You might want to add a little bit of hand soap as well just to clean the cord through. So we're going to wait about 30 minutes now, and then we're going to start the dyeing process. So if you guys are dyeing the cord in your kitchen, you might want to lay an old rag or newspapers or a cloth down so that it doesn't stain your furniture. We're going to be dyeing the cord here using a hybrid of the two dyeing methods, so the stovetop method as well as the tub or bucket method. So how we're going to do that is we're going to use a glass bowl, and it's up to you. If you have a rubber bucket, you can use that as well. The part here that's kind of a hybrid to the stovetop method is that I'm going to heat the water that I'm going to use to just below boiling point and pour it into the bowl here. The reason why I'm using hotter temperature water is because I want it to soak through the cord better, and so the higher the heat of the water, the more vibrant the colors will be. So before we pour water into the bowl, we're going to also add some salt. So the salt is needed because it will help the cord soak through the dye better. And so because I'm using 5 cups of water for this dye bath, I'm also using 1/8 of a cup of salt in my mixture. So once you have your water at a point where it's just about to boil or it's starting to simmer and you've turned the stovetop off, we're going to pour the water into the bowl. You could also add a little bit of dish detergent in here if you would like. The detergent is also said to help the cord take the color better and help the color dye more evenly across the fibers. I found that using dark colors, the detergent's not really needed, and because I'm dyeing a dark gray color, I'm going to skip this step. So the dye I'm using is a RIT all-purpose liquid dye in black. You want to get the color black if you want to dye your cord or your macrame pieces from a light gray to a black. Black is also good because what I generally use it for is to add a few drops into the other colors I'm trying to make the color a little darker. So like I said before, the dyeing process is a little bit experimental. So you're going to have to play around with how much dye you want to add to get to what color you want. And so because I am starting with the dark gray tassels and also the dark gray portion of the macrame piece that I want to dip dye, I started adding a few drops into my water here just to test out and see what color it would give me. So I've added a few drops and then I'm going to stir it around, and then I'm going to test the color using a small section of cord that I cut. They recommend you using paper towel to test the color. You can use that as well, but I find it useful to see what color it actually shows up on the macrame cord. So I'm going to throw my small piece of cord in. This is my test cord that I have pre-soaked, and I'm just gonna push it down and twirl it around just to see what color it actually gives me. If the dye bath is strong and has a lot of dye in it, the color of the cord should turn dark right away, but because I don't want to start off with it being too dark, I want to work my way up to the color that I want. We're going to just add a few drops at a time to slowly get there. So taking it out, it is kind of lighter than I want it to be, so I'm just going to add a few more drops in and test the cord again. So now we're going to throw that test cord back in just to see what color it gives us now. And of course, the more cord or fabric that you want to dye, the more dye you will need to use. It does recommend here saying that 1 liquid bottle is good for 2 pounds of dry fabric. So you're going to have to test your dye amounts and see how much you will need for the amount of cord that you want to dye. For small projects like these, 5 cups of water and a few drops of dye is sufficient. So now I'm going to take it out, and I can see now that it's more of a medium to light gray, and I know the longer that I soak my cord in, the darker the color will be, so I know now that I have enough dye here. So now I'm going to take my tassels that I have fringed already, and I'm going to place it into the dye bath. To make sure that your cord actually fully soaks up the color and that it's not just the color on the outside layer of the cord and the inside is still a beige white color, you just want to make sure you either fringe your cord or you untwist them a little while they're in the dye bath, just to make sure that the dye fully soaks all the way through the cord. Because I have fringed the cord here, It is in smaller individual fibers, so it should easily soak up the color here. Make sure you guys give the cord a good swirl around because that will help the cord dye better. Occasionally you can take the cord out just to see what color it is and see if it's light or dark enough for you. I'm only using my hand here because I can't find my rubber gloves. RIT dye does claim that they are 100% non-toxic, so it's okay if you touch the dye or get a little bit on you, or even use glass and bowls that hold food later on. Just make sure that you clean them thoroughly after. The only downside to using your hands in this process is the dye might get temporarily on your hands and nails. So once you've got the color that you want, we're going to rinse out the cord with lukewarm water to cold water. So I'm going to squeeze them dry here and then take them to the sink to rinse them. Then we're going to lay the cord to dry on a paper towel. So now that the tassels are done and we've rinsed them off and placed them elsewhere to dry, they should dry overnight, and we'll come back to them later just to see how the color turned out. And just because we still have our bowl of now warm black dye, we're going to add a little bit more dye into the bowl because we're going to start off with the darkest gray part of the ombre to the fringe of the wall hanging. So once we have more dye in the dye bath, we're going to place the fringe into the dye bath, and I'm just going to put my ends in there, and I'm going to poke the cords down so that it soaks up the dye. So we're going to ombre this portion of the fringe, half of a darker gray and half of a very light gray. And so we're doing the darker gray right now, and then all you have to do after to make the lighter gray at the top is wait for the bottom part to dry a bit. I would say give it about 10 to 20 minutes. Pour half of this dye bath into another bowl and then pour more water, warm water into it. All you have to do is soak all of the fringe here until you get a lighter color at the top. And this is what the end result should look like. I just showed you guys how to make the middle part of the darker gray, and I separately made the lighter gray at the top and the darker gray at the bottom. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how to make this really nice dusty pink. So I'm mixing two colors, and I've got the petal pink and also a bottle of the tan colored. And I'm going to mix a bit of both of these just to make a nice dusty pink color. So once again, we're going to pour hot water into the bowl, and now we're going to drop a few drops of the petal pink into the bowl, as well as a few drops of the tan into the bowl. We want a little bit more pink than the tan, just so that the color will come out more pinkish. And so once we have a few drops of both in, we're going to put our salt into the mixture and also a little bit of dish detergent this time. We're going to stir it around, and then we're going to use our test cord that is pre-soaked and put it into the mixture and see what color it will be. Seems that the color is too light right now, so we're just going to add a little bit more dye of each color. So we're going to place our test cord into the dye bath and see what color it will make. And because it is a light pink now, it is good to go, and we're going to put the rest of the cord that we want to dye into the dye bath. Now all you have to do is stir it around and wait for it
to soak up the color before we rinse them and dry them out. And so now we have cord that's a nice dusty pink color. Don't worry if it looks too dark after you've taken them out of the dye bath. They generally will dry lighter, and also after you rinse the cord out with water. And that sums up how to dye macrame cord and dip dye your macrame wall hanging using RIT dye. I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. If you want to learn other ways to dye cord, let me know as well in the comment section. Now that we're at the end of the video, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a bonus with a 10% coupon code off any cord in my store. So if you want to check that out, see the code I have placed right here. Enter it in checkout at bochiknot.com/shop, and there you go. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.